Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Sorry.
Good morning, those folks, and welcome to the feed. We have new timers today, so
They're loud.
We're proud and we're loud. Okay, welcome to the feed. It's October 21st. It's Mike Smith and Marty Gallagher. Today's guest is Kelley Tully. We're going to be talking about the legislature. You may think nothing is happening, but things are still happening. We're going to start with some local events and with Marty. Go ahead, Marty.
So they had a pretty good weekend at the Bells Falls Opera House this weekend. They had about 40 people to come in for Mamma Mia. They are looking, and moving forward, they are looking for movie sponsors. I believe was it $250 to sponsor a movie?
I think so.
Couldn't
That's
remember
what
specifically. If that's what Jen said. So if any business or local person is interested in sponsoring a movie, maybe you don't want to go to a movie, but you still want to support the Opera House, that would be a great way to do it. People could probably even, combine forces.
Yeah, you can put together a group if you have,
And if you're interested, you can call the Opera House at 802-376-6480, or you can email at bfoh@rockbf.org. That is a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. But you can also look on their Facebook page. They have a lot of information on their Facebook page as to what's playing, but also the precautions they're taking and all the things. So I think it's going to take a while, but I think people are going to get to build their trust and start going to the movie again, because they are doing
They've done a lot of research into how to make it flow as seamlessly as possible for the person coming to the movie, and to make it as much of a normal, whatever normal is now, movie experience. So, they'll just have to it'll take some time.
Yeah, good. Anything else going on?
Yeah, just letting everybody know that Sean McGinnis has kind of given a direction regarding trick-or-treat. There will be trick-or-treating in the town of Bells Falls. He's deemed that because most people are very conscientious and have been wearing, in the community, have been wearing masks, and we have, it's considered a moderate risk activity, and he sees, as long as people follow some guidelines, then there should be no issues with trick-or-treating. The biggest guideline is families should travel in their family groups or in whatever your bubble is that you've been traveling in. Maintain distance from other folks. Wear your Halloween masks. I guess that'll be easier to wear masks at Halloween. And they actually have some pretty cool Halloween. Pat Fowler has some pretty cool Halloween masks. So if you don't want to have a whole costume, you can just have a face mask. Make sure that you only go to homes where lights are on. And then for folks that want to supply trick-or-treats, there will be no handing candy, like that kind of pass-off. So the idea is to have either a table on your porch, or maybe a table at the end of your driveway with a bowl of candy on it that you kind of refresh every once in a while. And reminding people that are out and about that night that there will be trick-or-treaters out. So just make sure you proceed with caution, drive slowly, that type of thing, the common sense things that you would normally do anyway. But so there will be a fairly normal trick-or-treating this year. And also wanted to remind people, because it is becoming, getting closer and closer to voting time, that if you received your ballot in the mail and you want to bring it in early to the town hall, you can bring it in this Thursday or next Thursday after 12 p.m. They'll have the tabulation machine there. So you don't have to wait until the actual voting day, or you don't have to mail it in if you're not comfortable mailing it in. You can drop it right off at the town hall.
It's great. I did that already.
You're so organized.
I wish I would say I was organized. I think it was more Sue was like, hey, I'm taking my ballot down. Do you want to go along? And I was like, okay, that's a great idea.
The truth comes out now.
Okay. Kelley, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good, I think. Dealing with the COVID and dealing with fall coming on and the holidays. But how are things at the legislature?
Well, they have slowed down a little bit, but continue to move along. We did end our session I think of the 26th, around the 26th of September, we had gone back in the 25th of August. And one of our main jobs was to really finish off the fiscal year 21 budget, because prior to that, when we left at the end of June, we had approved the first quarter, and then we had the remaining 3 quarters of the budget to finish. And the appropriations committee and the joint fiscal group, they did the lion's share of the work. They worked tirelessly on that, and it was pretty impressive as a new person to legislature, to see how they connect to all the different committees and the different groups to make sure that we are certainly funding to make sure the government can continue to function and support the state, as well as some of the special interests that the state has really focused a lot of work on the last couple of years. So as a new person, it was pretty impressive, and I would like to say it was overwhelming, but they had some really strong people that had lots of experience, so I was able to really learn a great deal. And so the Judiciary Committee had, focused on what their needs were, and if there were anything else that we wanted to fund. But yeah, so that was our primary goal, and that kind of, so it goes back between both the House and the Senate, and we were able to work a lot of those details out and get the budget passed. So we were happy to be able to do that. We also had to finish the second round of funding from the CRF funds that we wanted to get out to the different groups. And I do have a list of, I can't do it from memory, but I do have some highlights that we had, and we were able to, I just want to make sure some of our highlights were that we were able to help funding for the Vermont State Colleges, because we know that was a big concern at the beginning of the year, of this actually calendar year. We're able to bridge some funding for $23.8 million for them. We had $5 million for equity payments to Vermonters left out of the federal stimulus payments. So we were able to cover that. We provided some $1.5 million for VITA and matching for the CUDs, an additional $1.5 million in the CRF grants. And that, those are the communication union districts to really help different communities attain their internet and access, because that truly, I think you guys can certainly probably know, if not personally, experience the lack of really strong Wi-Fi in every spot. And I know the teachers certainly, and families have experienced a lot of the weak links that we have, that we hopefully can, it's not going to be an overnight change, but this is the footing to be able to help everybody in our state get, equitable Wi-Fi. So that was, funding all that telecommunications. We did a lot of micro business funding for both minorities and women and other small businesses. We were able to fund $1 million for electric vehicle incentives, as well as $500,000 to incentivize some public transportation ridership. The total business grants was probably right around it was about $102.5 million, and it included everybody, whether it was, you're looking at restaurants or recreation, it really, all the businesses, we wanted to make sure we could support them. And the hazard pay expansion was $22.5 million. So the total from the prior session, before we left at the end of June, so the total hazard pay was $50.5 million with that additional funding we were able to get. We also, pre-K to 12 education, we added $53 million for schools. So the total school CRF money was right around $103 million, and 13.5 of that was just for HVAC upgrades for a lot of the schools. So that's a bit of, let's see, we also were able, to fund Meals on Wheels with a rate increase for them, as well as money to adult day programs to help them be able to reopen as soon as it was safe for them to do that. So there's a lot of money that we also, through our discussion on some policing and public safety issues, embed some mental health clinician money for public safety. And then the downtown tax credit increases the limit of $400,000 to $3 million total. So we, that was a lot of work, making sure that you're trying to cover as many people. And I know that we probably, there are areas that you're never going to be able to give them enough money, or you might have left some smaller groups out. But hopefully, I think with just watching the cog turn and making sure everybody was bringing to the table as many stakeholders as we possibly could, I think that was quite a monumental task, and I think everybody did a really good job at that.
I agree, yeah.
I have just a curiosity question going back to the budget and balancing the budget. Was it particularly challenging because the state isn't receiving as much sales tax income? I'm assuming sales tax income is down.
Yeah, the sales tax is down. As you know, there's a lot of ups and downs to how COVID has affected us from an economic standpoint as well as an emotional standpoint. So, unfortunately, the liquor sales were up. So
That's funny. That's classic. I'm sorry.
That is classic. That's great.
We couldn't have planned that better if we tried. I just threw that question out because I was curious.
But yes, yeah, overall, and I think that I don't know. I think we are super fortunate to live in Vermont. I am so grateful because we have green spaces to get to. Mm-hmm. I could not imagine living in the city in the, like, say, even New York City or in the middle of Boston, mm-hmm. where it's really hard for you to distance yourself from people, and we actually excel at it, I guess, distancing ourselves from people. But we have the ability, we have the public space. We also attract a lot of people, so I think that's one of the. As soon as people could start moving a little bit, I think they certainly. I'm sure you folks all noticed that they started coming to Vermont.
Oh yeah.
Because we have, we have that space, and we just want to make sure everybody follows the masking rules and washing their hands and not putting each other at risk for any reason.
That's right. Did you see any, when looking at the stimulus money, there was, so much has come through, and as the second wave of stimulus has been stalled, do you think that? Because one of the things that's stalling is that money to local government and state governments. Are you concerned about that, or do you hear people talking about that, or because that was one of the original things, is because local governments are spending so much more money right now to do things, and state governments are too. They were concerned that the second wave could.
Yeah, I think, there is money available for municipal governments. They also, and I think we talked about this, I think last time, was really about what is available as far as, taxing, what the taxes and not being able to meet, because that's how we write a budget, in the municipalities, is to be able to count on some of that tax money in order to meet their budget. Mm-hmm. So there was certainly a ability for the towns to borrow money and then not pay the tax on that money and hopefully recoup it by the end of the year. But as far as some of the other details, I don't have a good answer, but I certainly can find that out if there's any other ways to fund, our governments.
No, I wasn't. I was purely curious. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Because I was wondering, because there was the thought that this second wave of stimulus money would come, and it sort of never materialized. And I didn't know whether people were counting on that or just saying, well, we'll just do what we can do with what we have.
Well, I'm hoping that even some of the monies that were available, because we're all part of the same community is that some of the money that was going to the help with the HVAC systems in some of the schools, that would, not be an added burden to the towns to have to come up with that money to meet the goals. And I think, and while we're speaking of teachers, I think they've done an incredible job to be able to think on the fly. I think we all knew eventually we would go back to school, but when you actually put the the rubber to the road to make sure that we're getting the kids there safely, and the teachers I think are doing a really good job at doing the distance education as well as the education in person. And it's not easy, and we're gonna, and it's hard to say this, but we're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna do the best we can. We go into it making sure that everybody's safe. I mean, a virus exists, whatever virus you're talking about, and eventually somebody's gonna spread it to somebody. But to minimize the impact, I mean, I don't want people to certainly live in fear. I think they should, but they do, and if a positive case shows up, it's to be expected. Yeah. It's not welcomed, but it's not, completely a shock.
Right. Well, locally here, kids are starting to go back. This week they started at 4 days a week, so that's a pretty big step. I think this graduated approach may be difficult on people, but it seems to be very successful. There haven't been any outbreaks. Even the studies that they're doing about what cases they're finding, they're not finding it's the kids spreading the virus, but adults who are associated with the kids. Even the hockey thing they're talking about now it wasn't the kids, it was the adults out doing stuff outside that was.
They shouldn't have been.
Yeah, that maybe shouldn't have been, but
hence the liquor increase.
Yeah, hence the
liquor sale increase.
In liquor sales.
There you have it, right there.
And that's a great example, Mike, of saying, oh, we thought it was going to. I mean, somebody decided that was going to be okay, and then we had to have to do a little bit of a retreat and say, you know what, let's rethink that.
Yeah.
And to rethink it, do we have to rethink the actual process of the rinks being open, or do we have to rethink the process of was everybody following the rules?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, again, and this is, and I don't want anybody to get sick, but I think we really need to evaluate and say, okay, what did we learn from this, and let's not repeat it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
How is unemployment in Vermont right now? The unemployment, everyone ended up getting their money and that all got worked out?
Well, it's somewhat. I think there are still people that are out there that are still, trying to figure out their case. And I do keep in contact with a few people that still need some assistance, and directing it to the different parts of the Department of Labor. I think a majority of the process has been completed, and that everybody is either receiving or has received what they had hoped they would get or what was allotted to them. There's still some outliers that if you're a complicated case, it unfortunately does bog you down from an individual standpoint in order to get your money. The other part of that is that we constantly, I've only talked to one person in the last couple weeks about it, but moving it on to the commissioner and hoping that it gets figured out. And then we still have the local, support of whether people need assistance with food and, some rent money, through SEFCA and Rockham Helpers and the different groups that continue in our place that continue to help people until they can get through that phase.
Moving on to voting, how is the legislature concerned about voting and the voting process, or how are they getting involved in that?
Well, we knew from the beginning of the session, at the end of the last session, that it was decided with the Secretary of State that it was going to be mail out all ballots to all registered voters. So having said that, hopefully most people have received their ballot. They were mailed out the end of September, I think 18th or somewhere around there, that it was mailed out to everybody. So I want to remind everybody, keep that ballot, even if you want to go in person, and bring it with you. So do make sure you can fill it out, and mail it back in. It's really important to follow the rules. I think we talked about this last time when we were talking about the primary, is to make sure there's the certificate envelope that you actually have to sign and date and put your completed ballot inside that. And you can drop that off you can mail it in the mailer that's postal paid. Do that by the 24th of October. And then you can also fill it out and bring the envelope to your polling station, wherever that is in your town. And then you can also just bring it and fill it out when you get there.
Yeah.
There will be some extras that some of the polling places have, but the majority of the ballots are the ones that are mailed to each and every one of you.
That's good to know.
I do believe that they may have you sign an affidavit of some sort if you get there and you're a registered voter. You have to sign something that says, no, I did not receive my ballot, or it was lost and I need a new one.
Oh, so you can't just forget it and leave it at home and then expect to vote?
Well, you could, it could be lost at home, I guess, but
Yeah.
you know. That's the way, I mean, that's the intent.
Yeah.
And
It was something I hadn't thought through, is like, oh yeah, I could just walk in and get a ballot. But I already have done the other part. I was really happy to go in because I thought the town clerk's office was very helpful. So, because I was like, I'm not exactly sure how to do this, and they were like, oh, do this, do this, do this, and do that. You know, and it was like, you need to sign this, and you need to date that, and this is everything. So I felt really good about doing it that way.
Yeah, and also now here in Rockingham, it's back at the Masonic Temple. And reminding everybody to follow all the COVID-19 rules, make sure your hands are clean and wearing a mask, and they will probably limit who is in. You can only have so many people per square foot, so they will run that the way they need to. And I believe they're working on a drive-through, so you can leave your ballot. I believe they're going to work out the details on that, so people can drive by to drop that off. And then they will also, so that they're going to be open, I think, 8 to 7. I did just make sure that Athens, all the people in District 3, Athens will be open at Town Hall for voting from 10 a.m. to 7. Brookline will be 9 to 7, Grafton 9 to 7, and that's in the Brick House, Meeting House. And Westminster, again, 8 to 7 at the Town Hall in Rockingham. So do check. You can check your websites. The websites were pretty good to make sure that people understood when and how to get their ballots there.
Well, we're just about out of time. I wanted to give you a little time before so that you could give us your thoughts about the legislature, but I don't know if we're going to have time now. Don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, maybe just give us your biggest takeaway from your experience, your biggest positive, your biggest negative.
My biggest positive was really how much how hard everybody works and how to stay connected, to make sure that we're talking about the biggest and even the smallest topics. It's nice that everybody keeps emailing their concerns to the legislative emails so that we can address it. The work behind the scenes that continues to be done is also pretty amazing, that although we are not officially in session, some of the work groups continue to meet weekly, and new work groups have formed. There's one on National Guard in the state of Vermont that is a newly formed one that started and continues to work, as well as the Social Equity Caucus that I attend. So there's a lot of stuff that still goes on, and the issues are still discussed. So I guess it's in so that's one of a great strength of ours that everybody does. And the weakest part, I would have to say, is also part of one of the strengths, is I really do hope that Zoom continues so that people can access these committee meetings just to see what all goes on, whether it's live or recorded on YouTube, because I think that to me made a big difference in helping to explain what, like, say, the Senate was working on, even though we were working on the same topics, to see what they, you could see it that later that night, and it really helped understand the process that the other committees were going through. So I really hope that continues, and people might look at that as a weakness, but I think it really brings the legislation, all the legislation to the people, and I really hope we continue to do that.
All right.
We are literally 30 seconds.
Well, we have about 30 seconds left. I would like to thank you for serving and being willing to step up and do what you've done, and then be willing to come on our show and tell us what you've done. I mean, it's very nice. It's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think you open the door for local legislators and local, government people to do that. I think, you kind of started a trend that maybe they didn't think they could do it before, and now I think it'll be more
Yeah, I
more
hope so.
commonplace, and I think that's important. So thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
great, and thank you guys for giving me a forum to be able to bring the information to everybody. I really appreciate that.
Okay.
All right.
And I think that's it for the
That's
feed.
it. We're out.
Gulls Falls and Rockingham. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.